Hey everyone, Jay from Autism Music Australia here for another amazing Thriving with Autism podcast. I am super excited today. We have another incredible guest. It's been a run of incredible guests these last few weeks, and having a music therapist on the show is always phenomenal. And this one in particular, I've been connecting with over the last few months. She's very busy, so very privileged to have her and her wisdom and knowledge to share with you all today. I think you guys are going to get a lot of incredible downloads from today. So I have Sarah Dunston from Melodica Music Therapy. Sarah, a massive welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I would love to just ask you straight off the bat, how do you summarize what you do and why you do it?
Well, I guess I would classify myself as being a trauma-informed community music therapist that
Mm-hmm.
works across the lifespan. So, in my career, I'm 10 years as a registered music therapist now. I've worked in like loads of diverse settings from, running a group for little children impacted by abuse and neglect to aged care and dementia. And in between that, I currently do 2 days a week at Multicap, working with people with complex disabilities, adults aged between like 22 and 60. And then, I've also done some really cool stuff in schools, in flexi schools, special schools, running drumming programs and regular music therapy programs. I've also got some really exciting work coming up, running work with women in shelters.
Yep.
So I do all sorts of things, and I just love it.
No wonder you're
And
so busy. It's yeah. And why do you do what you do?
why do I do what I do? I guess for me, it's been a calling since I found out that music therapy was a thing when I was 17 years old. Music's always been a really big part of my life and who
Yeah.
I am. I started playing piano when I was like 5, violin when I was 7. And then, yeah, just throughout my schooling, I just knew that I wanted a career in music. And when I found out that music therapy was, in essence, using music to help people,
Yeah.
that for me was like perfect because, yeah, like I've always, um, yeah, like I didn't actually qualify as a music therapist until I was didn't start my training until I was 30. But before that, I worked as a carer for the Cerebral Palsy League. I was like
Yeah.
a swim teacher. I'd done volunteering with people with disabilities. It,
Yeah.
it it just has always felt like the thing that is my purpose.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then once I actually qualified, and even in the training, it was hard to do a master's at the time that I did it because, my daughter was 2 and 3, and I
Mm-hmm.
and I and I basically just became a single mother just before I started it, and
Yeah.
there was a part of me that was kind of like, "Are you crazy? Like this is a lot."
Yeah.
But then once I actually started studying it, I just loved it. It just was like all the pieces fitted
Fitted
into,
together.
yeah, and yeah, it's just been. Before that, I was a high school teacher, and I it was okay, but to me, it was just a job,
Yeah.
um, and I was music and English teaching, but music therapy to me, the idea of using music to help people in whatever capacity that
Yeah.
is, it's hugely meaningful to me.
Definitely.
Yeah, and just the bonds and the rapport that I build with the people that I work with. I love working with a diverse range of people. I and I love the fact that over time you can see how it helps them to develop in all sorts of ways, whether that's, helping with their emotional regulation or communication. Like,
Yeah.
music can be an incredible tool for developing communication. And yeah, when you see it working and you see, like, it doesn't feel like work to me. It just
Yeah.
feels like my calling.
I
Yeah.
know how that feels, and that can work both ways because we can be so busy and just overwhelm ourselves with clients back to back to back to back because we just love what we do, which is amazing too. Maybe you're better at controlling that than me. I've already had 3 clients this morning, and it's 10
Oh,
o'clock.
goodness. Yeah.
Um, I have a question for you around music therapy. We often have people asking, what is music therapy? So, in your words, with all your experience, I would love to hear your definitions. Maybe if you could give us sort of 3 or 4 kind of, dot points or whatever on what that is, and yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So basically, music therapy is, well, it needs to be run by a trained registered music therapist
Mm-hmm.
that has done study into, um, you know, um, evidence-based study into how music can um, help people. So, for example, when you're doing your training, you read all sorts of articles dependent on the area that you're looking at. And
Yep.
so, a really simple example that I like to give is that, they did studies of people in choirs, and they would, swab their cheeks before and after. And what they found was that there was a significant reduce in cortisol
Yeah.
in people once they engaged in that choir. So basically, when you come out of the training, you have all of this knowledge that's based in evidence on how, what you're going to do with your client, how that's going to impact them. I would say that it's also person centered,
Mm-hmm.
which means that when you are working with someone, you go into it, and the first thing you ask is, what do you want to get out of this?
Yeah.
What are your needs?
Yeah.
And yeah, whether that's, to help with anxiety or communication or motor skills, you develop a program together with that person to get those objectives met. And you do that through finding out about the preferred music of the person,
Yep.
and also their preferred kind of activities. I mean, you can also present activities for them that they might end up really enjoying
Yep.
and use that. But basically, it's about working with the person, using music to obtain goals. And the other really key thing is that you don't need to be a musician to access music therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It's different to teaching because, maybe if their goal is to develop skills, vocal skills or piano skills, that can become part of their program, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not driving force.
Yes.
The driving force is that you're using music as a tool to achieve non-musical goals.
I love that. Yep. And that, I think what you just said there is that difference. Can you just say that last sentence again?
You're using music as a tool
Yep.
to obtain non-musical goals.
Yep. Yeah, I often get incredibly talented kids coming to me at Autism Music Australia, or the parents reaching out that they've had trouble with other music teachers, and the kids either exceptionally gifted at music, and the other teachers, the teachers they've worked with, haven't been able to ebb and flow a structure to suit their unique abilities. And obviously, with Autism Music Australia, we've created all these amazing color-coded systems that make music learning a breeze. And they do really relate to these exceptionally talented kids, these guys that are, can hear anything, can literally, you play them any Beethoven, any Mozart thing, and they can play it note for note, but they don't have the physical ability. and
Mm,
they come to me and they're like, I want a music therapist that can do this. Can you do this? I'm like, well, I'm not a music therapist. I'm a music teacher. However,
mm,
years of working with kids on the spectrum and having built the school and the structure around after teaching thousands of kids, I've got these structures, and totally I do that. And they're like, but we've got, the music therapy budget. So I try and steer them back to music therapists that have that ability to teach that way. But again, it's a different thing. They're not, music therapists are not so much music teachers. They
mm.
are music therapists, which with that outcome, although you can incorporate that music
Yeah,
learning into it, right? So,
yeah, for
could you
sure.
just share a bit on your thoughts on what I just said and anything that comes up for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I guess I was just thinking then, yeah, like maybe that definition is a little bit too succinct.
Yep.
If they do have a goal of wanting to learn an instrument, then of course we will accommodate that. But the way that we see the learning of those skills is maybe a bit different
Mm-hmm.
to teachers,
Yep.
because we also see this as like if they're doing piano, you're working on your fine motor skills.
100%.
You're also maybe working on planning, cognition,
Yep.
being able to sequence ideas and working on your memory,
Yep.
and also emotional
Regulation,
expression is
expression,
huge when you think about learning an instrument, because if you're able to learn an instrument, then that means you can express your emotions in a
100%.
really beautiful way. And I
Yeah.
guess when we are writing a report, we would incorporate all of that into our report. And we might also incorporate things through the learning process that a teacher might not. So we might think, okay, they've got a ADHD or they've got autism. They've probably got executive functioning. Um, they need to work on their executive functions and get themselves really regulated before they do something that
Yeah.
requires a lot of mental capacity. So,
Yeah.
like for me, in my sessions, I always start with something embodied so
Yeah.
that you're regulating the body before you turn on the brain. So whether
Absolutely.
that's dance or drumming,
Yeah.
or even some body percussion,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Like I would always do that
Yeah.
before I do a therapeutic music lesson. And I
Yeah.
think, for somebody, if they've just been used to the traditional way of learning music,
Yeah.
I remember when I learned piano, sit down at the piano, you get straight into it, start doing a scale.
Yeah.
Um, you know, uh, People might think, well, why am I doing drumming
Yeah.
before? I just want to learn guitar. Like,
Yeah.
what's this doing? Like that,
Yeah.
we see it as a holistic and bigger picture, I
I love
guess.
that. Yeah, it's so interesting, and same like learning a scale too. Like I remember when I was studying classical music and my teacher making me do scales, and I'm like, why am I doing this? It's like, oh, because you have to for all the technique and stuff. Whereas for me these days, I see a scale as a selection of notes that a person can use to create an emotional sensation to use to improvise over a certain chord or harmony. So I make sure I'm really
Absolutely.
clear about teaching when, if we're ever working on those sorts of things, like why. And that answer, like I wish I'd known that when I was learning classical. The amount of parents and students that I get come to me traumatized from strict and rigid musical lessons
Yeah,
is like phenomenal. And like breath work I use a lot with my clients. Like, do you
absolutely.
use breath works before your sessions or during your sessions
Well,
sometimes? Or
I guess, for me, I try and incorporate breath work into things like doing vocal warm ups and things like
beautiful.
that. So, really working on taking a really deep out breath. And I also do a bit of breath work maybe at the end of a session or at the beginning if they're super anxious. But I might entrain it to some kind of music. Um, Background music, ambient music, and I will say, first, tap the beat, find the beat,
Yeah.
and then see if you can breathe in time with that beat, or play a sensory instrument. And I'll say, remember to breathe, take deep breaths, or use a parachute,
Yeah.
and say breathe with the parachute.
Okay.
Um,
do you actually
Yeah,
physically use like a parachute kind of thing, or it's yeah?
yeah, a little
Right.
parachute, or a kind of stretchy fabric. They also
Yeah.
love that. And just do really gentle movements and train the breath with that kind of thing. Yeah, so yeah, I do incorporate breath work, but I kind of do it with other things as well.
Yeah. I feel that one of the most important things with this, and this is, I interview a lot of parents on this podcast as well that are often implementing exceptional tools with their kids.
Mm,
And the thing that I love with everything that you're sharing, and I feel like sort of what sets teachers and whereas the therapist or teachers like myself apart is that adaptability and that flexibility to literally, just being super in tune with the student at every moment in time to the best of our ability without
absolutely,
getting caught up in the rigid structure, any forcefulness of any concept, but being able to flow with that and celebrate their unique magic and their unique gifts for whatever flows in the sessions. Does that resonate with you?
absolutely. Yeah, it's so important, and it's totally missing from like instrumental music lessons that you get in
Yeah.
a school or
Yeah.
that kind of thing, and it's really to the detriment of the child,
Yeah.
I think, because it's completely not even taking any kind of awareness of what the child needs,
Yeah.
and it's just like you fit this system or you're out.
Exactly.
And even in terms of genre and style of music, like I
Totally.
remember when I was learning violin at school,
Yeah.
my mother had to make me keep going, but
Mm.
it was only when I left school and I was able to access, folk and gypsy music and also start improvising in bands and with my own music that I actually had like a true love of the instrument. And
Yeah.
it's just not even, they don't even try.
Yeah.
Like, they're just like, you will play this or you will play nothing.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it needs a shake up for sure, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I've got a lot to say about that. I'm not going to go into a rabbit hole and cause a whole lot of negative reviews on this podcast, but I would just like to presence that, if I look at the year, like say year 7 to year 12 curriculum at high school, I've got 6 and 7 year old kids that are way more advanced on so many levels with improvisation, theory, knowledge, understanding, songwriting, structure, versatility, can tell you the first three choices of scales and sounds that they would choose depending on the feelings and emotions they want to imply over any chord progression, any key. 6 and 7 year olds. Whereas, give me most year 12 classically trained students from any high schools, I probably
Mm.
couldn't get the answers from them. And I
No, if
feel like
it's not a dot on a page,
it's
they're
not a dot on a
lost.
page. And I feel like, and this is the comment that I think is going to get me, but we'll just go with it anyway.
Mm.
If that structure that they're teaching between year 7 and 8 and year 12 is the same structure that's been taught for years and years and years, and those theory systems that are being taught are the same structures that have been taught for hundreds and thousands of years.
Mm.
Structures that were initially implemented. They say the word musician comes from the word magician, and magicians wanted to keep all their secrets a secret. If everyone knew their tricks, then no one would come to the show. And to be a
Mm.
musician originally, back in the days of kings and queens and knights and princesses, to be a
Yeah.
musician was an extremely well kept secret, and they wanted to keep them. Therefore, all throughout music theory, there's glitches. Like, why is there no sharp between B and C, but between C and D there is? Why wasn't it just called A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K? It would have made things so much easier, but it was no. And those systems were not sent out that way. Same like with the structures. And I know the instruments, there's a lot of debates on this because, like, you see the way a piano's laid out or a guitar and that. But they've kind of been, laid out and modified in certain ways, and they work because we've learnt those systems. But it could have been easier, and even obviously the instruments aren't going to be modified, but understanding way more broader, way more easier to understand systems where you I always exploit the glitches. So the first things that I teach is all those secrets that kept musicians secrets, or the magic tricks of the magician a secret. That's like the first things that I teach. So they're like, why would they do that? And I'm like, exactly. And they're like, or the parents that are like, why didn't my music teacher teach me this when I was learning music when I was 10 years old? I would have been able to actually get everything now. It's like, well, it's because it's a secret. Because of this, it makes it very hard to learn, blah, blah, blah. So I think the way they drag that content out from, grade 7, grade 8 to year 12 or whatever, if they taught in a way that was easier, they'd run out of content in 6 months. That's the kind of point in my story, that the teachers would have no work because they'd have to be exceptional musicians that could play anything in any style and do all that stuff, to keep up with the kids. Anyway, just putting that out there.
That's so interesting. I actually didn't know that, Jay.
Yeah.
That's really
Oh, it's
fascinating.
nuts. It's nuts. And you look at me I've devoted the last 30, 40 years to studying like insane musical theory and science and maths behind music and frequency and all the things. And I'm sure you've done a lot of that too. And the teachers that I've been blessed to work with, I'm always sourcing the best teachers I can find. The more I learn, the more I realize how little I know. But that's kind of just the icing on the cake. And the glitches all throughout music theory is like, once you understand those glitches and see things in the broader perspective, it's just so much easier to play. It really is, let alone improvisation and just the all-encompassing aspects of music. It's, yeah. Anyway, is there
Yeah,
anything you wanted to share about that?
well, yeah, I mean, I kind of just, to me, it's kind of like it also harks back to that idea that, you know, um, what it means is that from a very young age, you're kind of taught that if you don't understand that music theory system, if you
Yeah.
don't get it and you can't apply it to an instrument or whatever, then that means you are not musical,
Yeah.
and that forever you're just going to be a passive person that sits back and can only just watch the person on the stage.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the things that in music therapy we have to kind of break down all the time. It's this idea that music should be for everyone,
Yeah.
that everybody has the capacity to engage in music
Yeah.
and to get something from music. And the fact that, thousands of years ago, or in other cultures even, music and dance and drumming and chanting were just part of how we were as a society. Like, part of my study is looking into an Indigenous lens in terms of trauma informed practice, but it's also about the way that in Indigenous communities, the use of drumming and chant and music was used as a connective factor for the tribe, to help them to regulate their emotions and their nervous systems, to feel like they were a group when something traumatic happened. They had these strategies for regulating themselves and feeling connected to each other
Yeah.
that we have lost in the Western system, where it's like, oh, you like music? Cool, we'll just go sit and watch a concert then,
Yeah.
like, unless you're one of the special people that is musical. Yeah, and I just think, yeah, it's all tied up in the same thing, really.
Yeah, 100%. I think, the simplicity of what you just said too, like breaking it down, like this is for everyone. The amount of students I've taught that have had like one finger, literally one finger, and can play incredible things, or yeah, one working arm, or non-verbal. So many non-verbal students, and it's just exceptional. The celebration of the tone, like being able to sing a tone from quiet to loud, is such a powerful tool. Like the amount of parents that I've had thank me for teaching their child how to control the volume of their voice alone is like huge. And it's
Wow.
it's so much simpler than maybe that older way of being like, you have to play this and you have to do that, to just be like, well, what if you don't? And what if that? And then rhythm for me is like a whole nother thing altogether. I could just talk for that about that for hours. But
Me too.
I always say that rhythm is more important, and obviously it's super adaptable with flow too, depending on the skill level. But as we
Absolutely.
dive more into, I guess, improvisation and creative flow with songwriting and stuff, obviously there's styles of music that where rhythm isn't as important. I think of like, guided meditation, sound healing, where that's kind of more in flow rhythmically, rather than if you want to record a track on some in a recording studio where you're playing with another musician, or a click track where rhythm
Yeah.
is really important. Uh, but the importance of rhythm too, like I always say that rhythm is more important than melody. I can play
Mm,
like the most wicked guitar solo that'll blow your mind with all
mm,
the wrong notes, with
mm.
awesome rhythm, and you'll be like, that was amazing. I can play an
Really.
incredible guitar solo with all the right notes, with rhythm that's slightly off. It sounds terrible.
Sounds like a mess. Yeah.
Sounds like a mess. So that importance of rhythm and the basics, of just coming back to that, to just being able to clap with another person, like it's such, and to celebrate that, in Autism Music Australia, counting to two is a massive celebration. We're like getting out the party poppers, like being able to count one and two, even if you can't pronounce the words, and you just can go, ooh, ooh, something like that. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
awesome.
And what's really interesting about that too, linking it back to children with autism or people with autism, they've actually found that once they do find that ability to play a beat or play in time, it actually turns on other parts of the brain too.
Yeah,
So it can help with developing communication and all sorts of other things as well,
yeah,
because it's like the fact that they are out of sync and can't do that in the brain, once that becomes a thing that they can do, it actually turns on other parts of the brain too,
yeah.
which is fascinating.
Yeah, and just seeing that excitement and the joy in the kids, like I get so emotional. Just this morning, even I was working with this child before he went to school, and just the mindset that it allows him, this feeling, or not even mindset, just you can just see the feeling in his body from the start of the session to the end, and he's all like, this is online. He's all like kind of out of his body, like just gets to the lesson. There's so much going on, and by the end of it, just so calm and
Yeah.
smiling and clapping for himself. And then the parents are like, oh my god, this is like this is the best day of school he has of the week, because the mindset he's in from being in that space before school is just phenomenal.
Yeah,
uh
it's the proprioceptive input, and it's also like, banging a drum in time is the also, the rocking and the stimming. They're all
yeah,
really rhythmic,
yeah,
and it's all connected to trying to regulate the body to enable movement,
yeah,
communication. Like a lot of what I do with adults with autism is I entrain my playing with their rocking, and you can see them and they're getting into it. And there's one client I see in his home, and his mum's there, and he won't even look at me when he's doing it, and she thinks that he's not participating, but
yeah,
I'm like, no, he is participating. He's getting himself ready. He's getting himself into the zone where he's actually able to come over and look at me and engage. And,
yeah,
and that's often what happens, once he's done that for a while. And that's through the music that he's getting into that. Then he's able to come in and engage and that kind of thing. So it's the key to everything, I think, is that rhythm and the ability to tap into it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, combined with that adaptability and love for what we do, it's super powerful. And yeah, honoring you for all the magic that you're having and the impact on all these kids and adults. I think with music too, the I think back to all the times in my life when things have gone belly up. It's
mm,
been the one thing that I've had to always come back to. Like, no matter what's going on in my mind, in my life, in my heart, in my relationship, in my business, in everything, when things go belly up, I think of being on tour, back in the day when I was doing 15, 20 countries a year and 200 shows a year. I remember having one in particular, one breakup in my mid 20s, which was, the huge moment in life. The relationship was everything to me, and it's in another
Yeah.
country. There was visas involved. There was all sorts, and it was really traumatic for me. And I couldn't really think about anything else. And when I'd get on stage and play for that like window of time,
Mm.
I was gone. Like it was like I was in another place and all that went away. And it wasn't until I put my guitar down and got off the stage and went, oh, that's right, I've got that to deal with. And I also remember the first time when I was 13 years old when I got so lost in my guitar solo on stage that I had my first like spiritual out of body experience, that I was had
Mm.
done that mastery of that instrument to the point where I was able to freely move around those patterns of those notes that I know worked so well in that thing. And I got so lost. I was playing at school and I got so lost in my solo that I closed my eyes, and then I got towards the end and people started clapping and I was like shook and look around and like, oh my gosh, that's right, I'm in front of people. And
Yeah.
that was when, really when my interest in spirituality started, which then in my 20s led me to yoga, kundalini, tantra, psychology, and all these things of lots of studies in those realms. But anyway, the power of music.
Absolutely.
I'll
Yeah,
hand it
that
over to
just
you.
reminded me because I also, I mean, I'm not really performing anymore, just because I have a lot going on.
Yeah.
But I that reminded me of a time when I used to be like a really core kind of member of Modifier, which is kind of like the Queensland Burning Man thing.
Yeah.
And I put on this little video on Instagram of, because I used to play with youth loops and stuff, and the lady that was organizing the temple burn, she said, "Oh, I want to use you," and so she got me to. I had to dress up as a bug because that was like the theme. I had this like amazing like headdress and all this like cool thing, and I was playing. Everybody was in a circle around us, and I was playing my music, and this amazing Indigenous man healer was playing Didge beside me,
Mm-hmm.
and I had, well, I get shivers thinking about it, but I had the same experience where I actually like left my body, and we had to finish when they like lit the flame for the
Yep.
G or whatever it was, and like I left my body with this didge playing, like I don't know, it was just wild, and it wasn't until somebody like tapped me on the shoulder that I was like, oh. And I came back into myself and they lit the flame. But
Yeah.
it was like the most incredible experience. And like, I always remember it. I have no idea what I played.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I was just somewhere else, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, those moments are incredible. And yeah, I think that kind of connecting to the spiritual, it is something that's kind of lost in music therapy a lot of the time,
Yeah.
because we've had to fight so hard for so long to be seen as legitimate.
Yeah.
And and it's good because like what we do is evidence based, and we always have like reporting and assessments and graphs to show the progress and la 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 la. But in that process, we've kind of really lost that. You know, in my research, we talk about how, because I'm using talking circles in my work now as a form of reflection and recalibration for this training I've developed. And in Indigenous culture, a talking circle is a representation of the medicine wheel, and the circle is like hugely important in Indigenous cultures. And if you bisect the circle, like part of this conceptualization of the talking circle is that if you bisect the circle, the top part of the circle is Father Sky, and that's the things that we can see,
Yep.
that we can test, in a Western hypothetical thing. And the bottom part of the circle is Mother Earth, and that is the realm of the emotional and the spiritual and intuition. And they say kind of that, if we don't kind of nourish Mother Earth's womb, that has repercussions for all the soil all around us.
Yeah.
And we have to nourish that part of the circle
Yeah.
just as much as pay attention to Father Sky in order to be healthy.
Yeah.
And it's what's so exciting for me about my research is that I don't know another music therapist that is working in this way and doing this kind of study.
Yeah.
It's just completely not talked about or
Yeah.
recognized, even in terms of like sound healing techniques and instruments and
Yeah.
frequencies and how they impact the body.
Phew.
Um, you
Huge.
know, because I use singing bowls and my happy drum and
Yeah.
binaural beats are just
Yeah.
like amazing.
Yeah.
And it's just dismissed as being like woo woo, not
Yeah.
evidence based. But if you dismiss it, you're dismissing a whole lot of
Yeah.
a part of music that just because you can't see it or verify it, scientifically, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, and the studies these days, you can kind of verify it scientifically with a lot of things as well.
Mm.
I'm finding less and less that I'm getting. I wrote the book last year, The Sound Healing Bible, which I believe is the
Oh,
biggest text on
amazing.
music therapy, not just music therapy, on sound healing on the planet. I've never seen anything like it, and I've
Have to send it
dove
to me. I'd
so
love to
deep.
read it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I've dove so deep into these things, and the principles of the nature of when you apply one note, that space in between the notes, the intervals, it's actually the interval in between the notes that create, well, with the note at the top and the bottom, that creates that emotional reference. So for instance, like a minor third creates an emotion of sadness. A
Yes.
tritone, or a flat five, sharp four, whatever you want to call it, has that incredible tension, then resolving up to the fifth gives a feeling of full power, right? So we
Mm.
can, and then depending on what key you're relating to with the chakra, like I literally talk with the client avatar situations that I take you through in the Sound Healing Bible. um, you could literally, like, you talk through the client ailments of everything they're going through, like broken shoulder, core, relationship wounding, or inner child wounding, all these things. We take you through all that, and like you literally relate it to the charts, and it's like, oh my god, this just all makes so much sense. And yeah, it's kind of next level. But a lot of that stuff, people like Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, are leading the field in these studies of the impact of thought and music and mind and body, the spirit.
Mm.
It's just like next level. So I think it's becoming a lot less woo woo, because we're starting to implement
Yeah,
the science
absolutely.
behind it now, to be like, well, actually, the things we've been saying are the things that our ancestors have been saying for the last 2, 5, 10, 20,000 years, which is a lot of the texts that I'm sharing. They've been blessed to be shared by with incredible teachers around the world. Anyway,
But yeah, I
yes,
mean, I think it's part of colonialism too. Let's be
totally,
honest. The
totally,
dismissing of this
yeah,
knowledge, this understanding. And yeah, I think part of the healing, with our First Nations brothers and sisters is a part of acknowledging how
yeah.
powerful that part of music and engagement in the world is, and that it is a thing and it is important and it exists. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, Sarah. Thank you for your beautiful insights on this. It's so lovely. I think this is the most I've ever spoken on one of my podcasts. I'm usually silent and listening, but getting all fired up in this one. So thank you.
That's okay.
Um, Man, I think we're gonna have to jump on another podcast at some point, because I've got so many questions I would like to ask you. But I guess one thing that, yeah, I would ask is that, with like a daily confidence boost for a parent or an educator working with their child, what's one habit or practice you would suggest that a parent could start today that would have a lasting impact on their child's growth, self belief, or confidence?
It's a big one. Gosh. I think I think finding your voice. Sorry, that's probably a beyond just a daily practice, but just any any way that you can work to help your child find their voice, and working on it consistently. I
Mm.
think that's the most important thing. And I think, whether that is through, just in terms of in the morning with a child, I don't know. Yeah, whether that's, singing their favorite song, or for me, um, what I like to incorporate with that is, talking about rhythm stuff. It's really simple. It's to just incorporate rhythm sticks,
Yeah,
while they're singing.
100%.
And, I have a client that, I have been working with him for about 4 months now. And, when I first started working with him, he's classified as non-verbal, but he would only give like one word responses. And so our music therapy program is pretty simple. We just do some clap stick exercises, and whether that's singing like an indigenous song, or like a song called like Zoom Zoom Zoom.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of them, and I can send them through as a resource if you like. But
Yeah,
we
that'd be
always do
great.
that at the start of the session, and because I could see that for him, just like banging these sticks somehow, like while he was singing these songs, it just like it regulates him. And so we do that, and then we go through his cards of his preferred songs, and he sings them, and we do a whole range of different things. But what I've noticed now is he's actually starting to talk in full sentences. So yeah, I think, like, even if it seems like it's a bit kind of like a little bit weird to, like, clap some sticks and sing a song at the start of the day,
Yeah,
I think that could be like a simple thing that,
that's amazing.
yeah, that could
Yeah,
could really help them to find their voice, and regulate themselves before they have to go to school, or whatever.
yeah.
Bang a drum, bang their hands, like whatever it is. Also, like deep pressure. Like, you could also do a little thing in the morning. Yeah, using the breath, and doing a bit of like self pattern massage, or tapping legs to
If you're not
music.
sure where to start with this too, I think a great
Mm.
track for that is "We Will Rock You." That boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom, boom. All
absolutely.
right. So if you're
Yeah.
looking
How
for a tool,
motivating.
parents,
Start
try
the
"We
day.
Will Rock You" before
Yeah,
or on the way to school or wherever you're going, and see how
absolutely.
that works.
Yeah. And just have
Um,
something that you can bang your hands on, or even if that's your legs. So that knees,
100%.
knees, clap, knees, knees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put your details, your website, and how people can get in touch with you in the description on this podcast, which will be on all good podcast streaming platforms. So people can get in
Beautiful.
touch with you through there. So if you want to work with that, with Sarah in any way, I know she's very busy, but there's that too. I also have, with Autism Music Australia, we have our fully automated rhythm program. That's a 6 week program with about 40 sessions on rhythm, starting from the basics of the most simplest to build right up to being an incredible percussionist and drummer. So, and that's self-paced, so you can do it there. So there's a few options there with rhythm incorporating. And if in doubt, we will rock you. Giddy up.
Yeah, because
Uh,
I just want to say in relation to that, that there is this incredible lady called Temple Grandin. Have you heard of her?
no.
So she was like, for most of her life, early life, she was really, really, she was nonverbal. She didn't talk. And then she figured out that if she went she lived on a farm, this cow compressor thing, which would compress the cows as they went through. And she, like, for whatever reason, thought, I think this will be really good for me. And so she spent hours just like having this cow compressor thing, like squeezing her body.
Wow.
And what ended up happening was that, she came out of herself. Like, I understand that, for a lot of people with children with autism, they kind of buck against the idea of a magic cure and that kind of thing. But for this woman,
Mm.
she then went on to get a PhD, and she describes what it was like to be severely autistic and unable to talk, and that she went into this cattle presser, and that was the thing that actually allowed her to come out of herself. So
Wow.
yeah, look her up, Temple Grandin. She's absolutely
I will
incredible.
definitely do that. What a concept.
Yeah, so that idea of like deep pressure and like is can be like hugely beneficial for because yeah, like nervous system regulation, and I don't know how it works, but
Yeah.
anyway, just yeah, check her out. She's amazing.
Sarah, you have been a wealth of knowledge. I'm going to have to wrap this up because I've got a client here myself in about 7 or 8 minutes. But
No
I would
worries.
love to get you back on again in the future because from today, I've got a gazillion questions I'd like to ask you. And I feel what you've just shared is going to have a really profound impact for a lot of parents and teachers out there. So thank you for your wisdom and magic.
No,
I'll put it
that's
in the
okay, no problem.
I'll put it in the link in the description, but where can people find you? Melodica Music Therapy, the website, and what's...
Yeah, I have a website, just melodica.com.au.
Yep,
And I also have a Facebook site, which is just Melodica Music Therapy.
amazing.
Um, yeah, so yeah, just you want to get in contact with me, that can go through either of those channels. Yeah.
And Sarah and I have been chatting a little in amongst our busy schedule, but I have an intention to have a chat with Sarah in the future about creating some magic together that I think will be really profound as well, mixing our two or different worlds a little bit. It's very similar in so many ways, and I'm looking really forward to that. So, thank you for your time, Sarah, and stay tuned, everyone. We will be back again
Okay,
sometime
thanks so
soon.
much, Jay. I really appreciate the opportunity, and
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
thanks for the chat. It was so good.
I think this is just the beginning. So, yeah, so good. But thank you.
No,